Like, doesn't who composed Game of Thrones?
Ramin Javadi.
I mean, he's done some games, hasn't he?
Oh, well, didn't he do Gears 5, Michael?
That's right. Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, the
Okay.
one you just reviewed.
The one you just reviewed 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, my memory is great. I promise.
All right, guys. Well, we had our inaugural podcast this week. It was released on YouTube. I'm pretty happy with it. I think for our first episode, it went pretty well. I don't know, guys. What you guys think?
Well, first successful episode.
Yes.
Yes.
We had some technical issues in the first couple attempts, but you know,
I think audio is the way to go.
for now, certainly, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see how my gamer headset microphone sounds compared to the Jabra Elite 75Ts that weren't so great in my closet.
I mean, I'm certainly not complaining about audio. I love your illustrations, Steven. So for all of you listening, you get to enjoy Steven's little illustrations of us.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, those were incredible.
Thank you.
Steven's the man.
Yeah. All right. So
I actually got to read and listen to your top threes.
I did as well. Actually, well, I didn't finish listening to all of the Squid Game top three, but I have listened to that soundtrack before. Michael, I am interested because you didn't rate the iconic Pink Soldiers theme as your top, or the other one you had, which was number 3. What was it called?
Okay, so I must confess, I've been treating these top three as these are my top three. I'm not saying in order.
Oh,
So yeah, it's hot
That is
take.
true.
So maybe I should clarify here. Maybe I could give you a live rating of which one's my top if you would like.
yes, because Michael has to be the contrarian over here.
I mean,
Okay.
also iconic. Like, I don't even know what this sounds like. Is it really iconic?
Okay.
Squid Game already?
Okay, let me rephrase. Iconic in that it was everywhere on social media and trends on TikTok. As when that you heard that everywhere on TikTok when that show came
So
out.
in other words, if you existed online in any capacity, then you knew what Squid Game's theme sounded like.
I exist and I couldn't tell you what it sounds like. I mean, I'm sure you're going to play it in the background here, Steven.
I use the term iconic very loosely here. But yes, I think personally, I remember my name it's a very emotional piece, Michael. But yeah, I was interested in your top 3. So if you had to rank your top 3 from the Squid Game soundtrack in order from best to worst, go.
Okay, number 1 would be Pink Soldiers, hands down.
Okay.
Number 2 would be I Remember My Name. Number 3 would be Way Back Then.
Okay, that's probably what I would have rated them as well.
And you know, the more emotional motif in I Remember My Name shows up a couple more times throughout the soundtrack. I found with Squid Game that there's a lot of very simple motifs that hold a lot of weight.
That's fair. I could see that. There's like the melodies aren't anything too complex, but I think sometimes those are the most beautiful. Like the Up soundtrack, the theme of Carl and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name. Ellie. Thank you. Yes,
Steven.
Shame on me. I'm a sucker for those simple piano motifs like that. They just have the emotion.
Same.
So I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think honestly, the most memorable motifs for me are the ones that are very broken down to its core, very simple. And usually, what happens with those is they'll show up in the very emotional single instrument form, but they'll be able to be expanded into a more orchestral version. Let me think of an example.
I could think of an example.
How about Libertad from your soundtrack,
yes.
Steven? In Libertad, which I have played Far Cry 6, and we can come back to Squid Game, but you have the plucked guitar doing the theme, which then really awesomely turns into an electric guitar with drums pretty quickly, and they go over it again, right? But it goes from do 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 do.
Yeah.
I probably just blew everybody out of the water, but yes.
No,
Is that what we're talking about, or is that not what we're talking about?
I think so. I think that's what we're talking about. I feel like a lot of times too they'll have a simple melody and then later in a different track sometimes have an orchestrated version of it and it's more grand sense. But definitely that one. Yeah, that's definitely where I was going with that. I don't know about Michael.
Yeah, I meant pretty much both of what you guys said, because then if you have an emotional, like a more soft version of a very simple melody, a theme, and you bring it in a very like grand orchestral way, it almost has more impact and is more epic in a way, you know,
Because you associate that with like the emotional core of the character.
You associate that with in a very personal sense, but also it's so big and epic, and it's like
so heroic.
Yes, exactly. Because like you can have the most epic music ever, but if it doesn't have that personal element, like you add that personal element, those are my favorite epic tracks of soundtracks, when they have a personal element to it.
Those are the give you chills moments.
Exactly.
Are there any that you can think of from that the audience might be more familiar with than Far Cry 6?
I was going to say, Robert, you reviewed something that was very iconic, but you also mentioned that there were some kind of emotional moments as well, that are the cheerier sounds in the soundtrack. I don't know if that would apply here.
Jaws. Yes. Yeah, Jaws was an interesting soundtrack. When I say it was cheerier, it's so strange because I've seen the movie more than once, and it goes between, as you guys have both seen Jaws, I hope.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Okay, good.
Classic.
Yes. It goes between, deep dread, and then the shark goes underwater, and we're like, I guess we're safe. But, like, at the period, John Williams was working with only orchestra, right? There was no synth. And so you do what you can with instruments, and if you bring in flutes and sometimes just the violin or whatever, it just sounds so much cheerier than what you're going to get today with a horror film, where you're not going to get, like, high flute notes or high violin notes or anything like that. If you listen to the soundtrack, you'll understand what I mean.
I know what you're talking about, because I've seen that movie enough. I can picture it in my head, and that's a really good point about what he was working with at the time. That didn't occur to me that would be one of the driving factors because of that difference in horror soundtracks from then into now.
Well, you really have the opportunity to go truly unsettling when you have electronic stuff to work with. You can really manipulate sound, I feel like, in a unnerving way.
And Squid Game, a lot of the soundtrack is more eerie and ambient. And I think there's enough of those tracks for me to. That's why I didn't give it I gave it a 4, which is a pretty high score, mainly because of the very iconic themes. But I would give it.
It's actually a really low score for Michael.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty high praise for me.
I have rate between 4 and 5. No, but like if it goes below 4, we edit that out.
I gotta add an unsettling horror note over Michael's
Yeah, there
curse.
you go.
Yeah, we'll have to decide what our level of swearing is on our podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're allowed one swear.
Hey, you had James Horner's
The danger theme.
the danger theme.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, throwback to last week's episode.
I love it.
What was I even saying?
You were talking about the unsettling synth sounds in Squid Game.
I would say that the reason I didn't give it a higher score was because there's enough of the more ambient, eerie stuff. Like, I think the highest score ones are ones that I can listen to over and over again, have a lot of re-listenability. And the more ambient stuff, if it's all ambient and it's really like a good kind of ambient, it's good, but it's for a specific listening purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm writing this, or
Like Skyrim.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end of the day, they are there to enhance the film or the game or the TV show. So you got to take that into account too.
Yeah, the perpetual problem of rating soundtracks, right?
Oh,
Indeed.
Which obviously was the wrestling with Jaws. Like, I'm not going to sit there and listen to horror music unless I'm writing a horror. But I know how perfect that score was for that movie, and how truly, in the true sense of the word, iconic it is, where everybody in probably the world knows that two-note dun.
Right.
Except
Dun.
possibly the younger generation might not know and might think. That's
My
not
gosh, if
iconic.
they don't know it, our world is done. I hope they know it. You need to start a TikTok trend, Steven. Make up a dance to the dun dun dun.
Don't you know I'm really old for TikTok? I'm basically a boomer in terms of Gen Z. Robert, there was something I noticed about one of your top 3 songs, and it was the beginning of the track Father and Son. Those notes really reminded me of the beginning of the Jurassic Park theme, which I thought was interesting. I never realized that it's kind of the dun, 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 dun. Like it's like the beginning. I don't know if it's the overture or what.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't pick that up.
Yeah, just like slightly, similar enough to where I was like, oh my gosh, that. And obviously it's John Williams, so he has that style.
Yeah.
But
It is so cool when you see germs of a theme somewhere beforehand, right?
I still remember the one from Gladiator that has that Pirates theme.
I was literally just going to bring that up.
I love the rendition of it in Gladiator. I mean, Hans Zimmer was like, oh, this is so cool. All right, Klaus Badelt, since you're my student, you're going to take this and you're going to use it in the next movie. I don't care how.
He's like, yeah, this needs to be a main theme of something.
Was Klaus on that movie as like in the music department?
He was. So. He wrote additional music. I may be doing Klaus a disservice here. I'm not sure. I have to go back. But he may have been the one who actually wrote that theme in Gladiator. And it was like, I'm going to get my awesome theme in here and then use it over and over again in Pirates of the Caribbean. Nice. It's a great piece though. Barbarian Horde, if you want to go listen to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've run to that track.
I believe it's on our epic playlist.
That's where I ran to it on. I was listening to our epic playlist.
Well, here's my beautiful segue. Speaking of reused themes, Ezio's Family, or is it Ezio?
I believe it's Ezio's Family. I have not played the original Assassin's Creed games, so I don't know.
But it was beautiful, that rendition in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You had that on your top 3. I listened to that. And I just listened to it because when I put it into the last podcast, which you referenced, the Assassin's Creed theme. And so I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, what they did with Assassin's Creed Valhalla was just incredible. So it's a 2.5-hour soundtrack, and it's a video game soundtrack, open world. So there is a lot of ambient tracks that are kind of, like, they're not as relaxing to listen to as Skyrim, which is why I'm giving it a 4.5. I originally was like, this is a 5 because of, if you just read the article I linked to, the old instruments they used, like the horsehead cello, also known as a morin kur, though I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, Mongolian instrument, the tagelharpa, also probably pronouncing that wrong, old Viking instruments, and then playing them in a modern way. Like, they did not try to learn how they were played, they just took them and used them in a way that worked for the game.
Love it when they do that.
Yeah, and then Jesper Kyd coming back after about a decade away and reworking his old Assassin's Creed themes and kind of starting anew. So he and Sarah Schachner and Einar Selvik worked together on it, and it's certainly the best Norse soundtrack, I think, better than Vikings TV show, which is a good one in its own right.
Yes.
Trevor Morris did a great job with that, but this just puts you in the world, really transports you in a way that I think Vikings did not.
Imagine how different Marvel's Thor would be with actual Viking music.
Oh, man. You're killing me with what could have been. Although, here's my segue. Your epic playlist, Steven, or your heroic playlist, that Portals track I had not heard before.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, that's from Endgame. It's a pretty good one.
What a great track. I mean, I knew the moment because that's the best moment in Endgame.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Hands down.
Like, far and away. Like, I was cheering in the theaters at that part. Great comic book music.
Yeah, I tried to add some from cartoons, some superhero cartoons in there. Added a few of those, although some of those, you get too into them, they can get a little bit too cartoony. But I tried to keep it, the ones on there that were kind of, I don't know. Now I'm just lost my train of thought.
I know what you meant. I haven't listened to it all the way through, so I'll have to go back.
Yeah.
But what did you think of Far Cry 6?
Overall, it was good. It didn't stand out to me, I'll say that. Because there are a lot of tracks on it that are just kind of the typical action with a lot of drums and then some like foreboding stuff. Based on what I've seen of other Far Cry games, I feel like it would work with that world. You're kind of running around. It's a little bit open world. So I don't want to like bash it or anything. It didn't really stand out to me as a soundtrack. There were some tracks on there that were good, but overall it didn't really stand out too much for me.
Yeah. In playing the game, I always enjoyed every moment that Libertad theme played, which was decently often.
Yeah.
But the rest of the music I don't really recall.
Yeah. I mean, that one made my top 3.
Oh, yeah. Made it number 1 for you. I might say it's the only good one.
Actually, I had the gorilla on there as number 1.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Got to make a mental note to actually list them in order.
Well, the thing is, like, I think it was the acoustic strings and kind of that easy tempo. I'm a sucker for that kind of music, so it's kind of why it was slightly above Libertad.
Anytime you go with the slow theme and build it into an epic one by the end of the track, I'm down. I believe Ezio's family ascending to Valhalla did that at the end of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I need to get to the game.
Oh, yeah, yes, you haven't played that one.
It is in my Steam. It's in my Steam library. It's been there for a couple years. I bought it as soon as the game came out, but getting through Witcher 3 and then Elden Ring and working through Red Dead Redemption 2 currently. All the good ones, but eventually I'm going to get to Valhalla.
Yeah, I've got a lot of catching up to on gameplay, like as in all of those. As in, I'm not historically not great at playing games, but at least I listen to the soundtracks.
Absolutely. There's some good ones.
Michael, I'm very happy that you included a certain soundtrack on your composer spotlight. You mentioned it in there, and that is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which I might add is a blast of a movie, and the book is very good as well. So I love that soundtrack for what it is. Like Henry Jackman, he definitely has a style, but I do enjoy a lot of his soundtracks.
Okay, you know what is really interesting? When I was researching, there was stuff I'm like I didn't realize was him. He's like way more prolific than I thought he was. Like I thought, I'm thinking the ones. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Civil War, and then some other blockbusters. But I completely didn't realize he did Big Hero 6.
Yep, that's a good one too.
Didn't he do X-Men First Class?
He did, and that one's a classic.
The music during the training montage is phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
it's a great running piece.
Magneto has some good themes in there. Yeah, it's got.
Now, I came up with some really fascinating stuff with him. Like, and I'm actually gonna review this soundtrack here pretty soon. The Gray Man that just came out.
Yeah.
The Russo brothers, the directors of that film, they weren't gonna be needing him to come on to score it until December of last year, 2021. And this was like 6 months prior. It was like on a phone call. They were telling him, "Oh yeah, we just shot a scene of some backstory of one of the characters or something," and they got to talking about the character's backstory and whatnot. And now, of course, he didn't have to get on board for another 6 months. He had just had his first child, and so he was like trying to take some time off, but he ended up like having an idea, so he kind of like started working on it on his own time, and ended up with this like 17-minute like suite without even seeing a single frame of the film. and he had the 17-minute suite that he showed the Russos. He's like, "I really hope they like this, because otherwise I spent that time for another."
That's a really long suite.
Yeah, and it's actually in the soundtrack.
Ah.
It's the first track. I'm excited to hear the suite, and then hear how it compares to the rest of the soundtrack itself.
I am too, because the movie just looks like a knockoff of like Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I started it. I'll say it's got a cool style. I didn't get far enough into it to really figure. I was at someone's house and I was only half watching, so
yeah, clearly it wasn't good enough to suck you in.
Yeah, I'll give it a fair chance, but yeah, I know they're trying to build it into the next James Bond franchise for Netflix.
Are they really?
That's what I heard. Netflix wants it to be like their James Bond. I'm like, I'm okay.
Wait, okay, so Netflix wants that, or the Russos want that?
Everybody involved. I mean, who wouldn't want that if you were involved?
I mean, as a director, I'd be more of a purist and be like, oh no, just a one-off.
Although I would give a lot of movie to see Christopher Nolan direct a James Bond.
Oh yeah,
That would probably be incredible.
it would.
Michael, if I was a director, I'd just say I don't want this to succeed at all, just because I want to be contrarian.
Of course you would, Steven.
Wow. Remind me not to give you millions of dollars to direct my
No,
movie,
please give
Steven.
me millions of dollars. Just
Just classic Steven.
Just don't expect you to make a good movie with it.
I might if I feel like it. We'll see. Give me the $1 million, then we'll talk.
We'll talk, just to talk.
After you have the money.
Just to get into talks.
Exactly. You were gonna say something, Michael?
Oh, yeah, I was going to segue back to Henry Jackman. I think he got his start in film composing, like working under Hans Zimmer on some of his more notable scores, like in The Dark Knight, for instance.
It's amazing how many people did.
I know,
yeah. Hans Zimmer kind of mentored him. And because I think he worked in like music production roles, like sound engineer and that kind of sort of thing before that. But yeah, like I was saying, his portfolio of film work is way more extensive than I realized. And he does a lot of the Russo brothers films, it seems. And I was looking at his stuff on Apple Music. I'm like, man, I'm going to give more of his stuff a listen. But the one thing that I thought was really cool was his theme for the character of the Winter Soldier. He recorded a bunch of vocals. I think he spent like 10 days on this and just processed the heck out of them. So they sounded very like mechanized, but it's almost like this idea of this human voice screaming out of this mechanical body, but this human element is still in there, like almost like trapped, which kind of lends to the nature of the character.
Wow, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, and if you listen closely, you hear the vocalization. It's almost like a screaming sound. It's fascinating and kind of heartbreaking in the sense of I love when composers do little things like that is specific to a character or some of the themes of a film or show.
Right. When I first heard that, I'd listened to that theme before, and I didn't realize it until I read something about it. Because Henry Jackman seems to have a lot of electronic kind of elements in his score, so I just kind of assumed it was something like that. But then I read that, I was like, that is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he also did Uncharted 4, which is an interesting one. I love the Uncharted 3 soundtrack. It's very like adventure, almost feels more like Indiana Jones than this one. But Uncharted 4 is another one I've listened to, and he uses some of the same themes, but they're much more subtle. And so I like them both for their own sake, but it is an interesting one because it is kind of a departure from the very kind of overt themes of the other ones. Especially Uncharted 3, so I thought that was interesting. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to any of those at all.
I have not. I actually just didn't realize he did Uncharted 4 until I was looking at his portfolio. And more composers than I realized do like both film and games and such.
Right.
It doesn't who composed Game of Thrones.
Ramin Javadi.
I mean, he's done some games, hasn't he?
Oh, well, didn't he do Gears 5, Michael?
That's right. Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, the one you just reviewed.
The one you just reviewed 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, my memory is great, I promise. So, it's funny because I was like thinking, I was like, dang, this is incredible. I didn't expect this quality from a game soundtrack. And then I remember this moment, I saw the composer, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because he's incredible. He's on Game of Thrones and Person of Interest, all these really good soundtracks. I mean, of course it's good.
Yep.
Yeah, a Westworld.
Original Iron Man, I believe.
Oh, did he really?
The first
Iron
one.
Man.
Yeah. Then they kind of
neat.
just threw away the themes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very electric guitar heavy, I feel like.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And that concludes, I think, our second podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to check it out. Next week, we're going to have another podcast. We're doing this weekly in conjunction with our weekly newsletter, so you can sign up for that in the description below. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where you'll find all these podcasts. And check out our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. See you guys next week.